Hey folks, looks like we're having a proper winter this year. Hope everybody's staying warm. Another really sad, heavy weekend news-wise, and I wanted to share a few thoughts on power, politics, and the famous them. So a man was shot, again, by masked men from the government. And right away, from the president to the FBI to Homeland Security, the excuse was he had a gun. Now, he had a right to carry that gun. It was a registered firearm, and he didn't draw it on anybody. But a segment of the Second Amendment movement has been strangely quiet on this one. And I wanted to talk about how we flip-flop on our core values sometimes, and it happens a lot, but this one's pretty extreme case. And first, this couldn't have happened without the very famous two-party system that we're living under, and people are being asked to identify as either a conservative or a liberal. And again, every time one side does something, it justifies the other side doing the exact opposite, or vice versa, depending on who's in power generally or who's making the public statement. And again, we get trapped in this, and we drop our core values to cheerlead for a team that we shouldn't probably belong to. You know, we should have our values, and you can be part of a movement, or you can feel strongly about things, and you can support politics and whatever, without being totally beholden to one of two groups that has historically just run the world into the ground and fundraised along the way. Their differences in rhetoric are always huge. Their difference in practice are often not very big at all. I think this is part of a larger problem of people missing the forest for the trees. And we get lost in all the trees are in front of us, and the trees are the distractions in the media. The trees are the information we get bombarded by. People are trying to dissect videos second by second, and we have to stop back and we have to look at the bigger picture. And this is where power comes into play. And then later, the famous them. Whatever your political alignment, left or right, gun control is an issue that relates to power in this case. And the Second Amendment is all based on people's right to defend themselves from government overreach. I mean, that's why it was written. It wasn't written about sport hunting on the weekend or gun culture. It was written about government overreach and an independent citizenry able to defend itself from tyranny. That's what it was about, right? And now I'm in Canada. The arguments are different here, but at the end of the day, for me, gun rights is about independent citizens, and I think citizens, even small, just humans' ability to manage their lives in a certain way and defend themselves against tyranny and overreach. And let's not forget, ICE is a branch of Homeland Security, and Homeland Security was created after September 11th, and it's supposed to be a crisis unit dealing with foreign threat. And 25 years later, now it's about controlling people in our own country, and you should submit to their authority. And we know that they're now doing warrantless house entries. We know they're using technology that was developed in Palestine to track crowds and movement of individuals by cell phone data. We know that citizens are being targeted because of the color of their skin. So more and more we see this department of the government that was originally set up as a response to a terrorist attack 25 years ago that was going to deal with worries overseas, and then it's the Patriot Act, and now it's, obey or be shot in the street. This is about a branch of the government that both Democrats and Republicans have funded heavily. They both, let's not kid ourselves, the Democrats have funded this thing since the beginning, and it's never been a problem when they were in power. And it's getting to be a branch of government that is stepping beyond the norms that people normally accept. And again, this can only happen because of the they. Now again, Homeland Security was funded and founded because of the they of Muslim extremists overseas. And then the legacy of that war was basically we worked with those same people whenever it was at our benefit and ignored a lot of the funding of those groups and when it was convenient, and it ended up being about oil and profits and control in the Middle East. But then a lot of domestic rights were eroded. Now the same thing is happening in people's neighborhoods, where masked men with very little training, often no background checks, are being given a blank check to drag people from their homes, from their cars, children from their schools, and citizens are standing up to it. And having a legal firearm on you should be something that everybody who's talked about gun rights in the past should be 110% on board with. This is really what this is all about, is that ability of citizens to freely defend their neighborhoods from government overstep. And again, it takes a them for people to do the mental gymnastics to create a narrative where a man who literally was holding a camera and then trying to protect a woman who was pushed to the ground, that was his crime. And then at one point, one masked government agent, and then another, until it's 4 or 5 are pepper spraying him, pushing him, beating him on the ground. They take his gun away, and then they execute him. That's what happened, right? Now you can cut that video apart. You can say officer's life, blah, 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 blah. All the excuses that people have made. At the end of the day, these are distractions. These are arguments that people have made because they've created a them in their head. And he was an evil lib commie protester or whatever. And so the government can execute him. And before that, it was, well, these illegals, we've got to make exceptions for these illegals. Well, they've been stopping people who are American citizens because of the color of their skin. And now they're doing warrantless searches. And now they're tracking your cell phone data and building up neighborhood databases and stuff on private cell phone data. This is all overreach that would be totally unacceptable, except for there's a them to justify the narrative of it's necessary that the government makes these exceptional oversteps. And this is not a uniquely Republican thing. This is not a uniquely MAGA thing. This happens to both sides. And it happened, we saw a lot of overstep during COVID. People wanted to protect their neighbors. They literally, made choices. I want to protect my neighbors from this COVID, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to justify quarantines at night and things like this. It just did not, it was overstep. And good meaning people let the government do things that later on we realized were a problem and created problems. But during the moment, people had their reason, the minority that was a bad minority that was fucking it up for everyone. So we got to let the government overstep and take away our freedom. And it's happening again right now. We're seeing it happen. And so what do we do about it? We got to stop getting tricked into this blue versus red. I mean, it's become a delirium. It's really, some people are like mentally ill with this stuff right now. And it's not funny. And it starts with blaming a minority for our problems and then justifying whatever comes after it. And that's the oldest trick in history. That's what every authoritarian government has always done. There's always been the bad minority. And I'm sorry, white men, I'm looking at you, brothers. We got to do better on this one, because they've been stopping people for weeks and months now because of the color of their skin. Citizens with paperwork, but they've been targeted because of the color of the skin. And if you don't think you can't become a minority at some point, wake up. Ride a motorcycle, like to hang out with people who ride motorcycles. Maybe you got your own land, you want to live off grid a bit. You can become a them real quick. So stop, think. Masked men from the government just executed someone in the street. You can't let that pass. We can't let that pass. We can do better. Look out for each other, folks. We're all in this together.